The first thing Ethan noticed about the wreck was that it looked like someone had taken a luxury star yacht and convinced it to wrestle an asteroid. The second thing he noticed was that the wreck was still alive, faint panels flickering like bruised skin, leaking sparks into the black. And the third thing, by far the most surprising, was the pair of figures standing in front of it, waving at him with the kind of casual cheer one did not normally expect from stranded travelers. He almost didn't wave back. He was supposed to be flying through this sector, not collecting new and probably complicated problems. But the way they stood there, graceful, statuesque, like two identical sketches of the same woman who had decided to grow ears that stretched into elegant points longer than his hand, pulled him in before his better judgment had time to object. "Great," he muttered to himself. "Stranded aliens with designer ears, just what I needed today." His ship, a boxy patched-together freighter, creaked as it landed on the barren moon. The ground was all dust and silence, except for the faint hum of their crippled craft. He stepped out, helmet sealed, tool bag slung over his shoulder. The twins met him halfway, speaking in a language that sounded like music trying to argue with itself. A moment later, a device on their wrists projected a translation. "Human," one said, her voice smooth and amused. "Did you come to fix our ship or just stare at us?" Ethan cleared his throat. "I specialize in both, actually. But I charge extra for staring." The sisters glanced at each other, silver eyes flashing, and then they laughed in perfect unison. The sound startled him. It was like two bells rung at once, sharp and musical. Their ship loomed behind them, sleek but battered, long lines and curves now warped by impact. He circled it, muttering, "Looks like your power conduit's fried. Hull integrity, about 70%, though hey, I've seen worse. Once patched up a cruiser with chewing gum. Didn't end well, but it worked for 2 minutes." "Chewing gum?" the other twin asked, tilting her head, long ears twitching. "Yeah, sticky human stuff. We chew it for fun, then engineers use it for temporary miracles. Don't worry, I brought better tools today." They seemed fascinated by everything he said, even the jokes, as though he were giving a lecture on magic. He got to work, opening panels, pulling wires. The ship's internals were a puzzle of alien tech he didn't recognize, but machines always talked if you knew how to listen. Sparks spat at him when he tried to reroute power, and he yelped, shaking his hand. The twins leaned closer, clearly amused. "Does it bite you often?" one asked. "Only when it's in a bad mood," Ethan muttered. "Ships are like cats. You fix them, they pretend they hate you, then they purr when you least expect it." That earned him another round of laughter. He wasn't sure if they found his jokes genuinely funny, or if he was simply the most ridiculous thing they'd ever met. Either way, it lightened the weight of the dead moon around them. Hours passed with him crawling through conduits, welding plates, and improvising with parts that had no business fitting together. He cursed at least once every 5 minutes, usually inventing new words just for the occasion. The twins followed him, sometimes handing him tools, sometimes making unhelpful commentary. "Why are you hitting it with that rod?" "It's called percussive maintenance. Very advanced human technique. Sometimes the universe just needs a good smack." "Will that work?" 50% of the time, every time." When he finally got the reactor humming again, the vibration spread through the hull, steady and reassuring. Lights inside the ship flickered on, panels steadied. He grinned despite himself. "There, she's breathing again." The twins looked at him with something softer than amusement now. Their ears angled toward him, and he realized it was instinct, like antennas focusing on the sound of his voice. It made him oddly self-conscious. "You fixed her," one whispered. "Yeah, well, someone had to. Besides, I'd hate to leave you stranded. You'd probably start gnawing on each other for food." They gasped, then burst into laughter so bright it echoed against the desolate rocks. "Humans are strange," the other said, "but useful." Ethan wiped sweat from his brow, sitting back against the ship. "I'll take that as a compliment." They sat with him, all three staring at the stars above. Silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Eventually, one of them leaned closer and asked, "Do all humans talk to machines like lovers?" "Only the lonely ones," Ethan replied without missing a beat. "Which, judging by my dating history, is most of us." They laughed again, and this time he joined in, the sound carrying strangely in the thin atmosphere. Their ship was alive again, and yet something else had sparked to life too, something harder to name, something that hummed beneath the jokes and the repairs, a current stronger than wires and welds. When the twins finally turned to him, smiling with identical warmth, he felt the shift in the air. He didn't know what they would ask yet, but he knew it would change the trajectory of his wandering life forever. The invitation came wrapped in mischief. Ethan was tightening the last bolts on their engine housing when Lyra appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, smile stretched across her face like she knew something he didn't. Vera leaned just behind her, identical grin mirrored in silver. "You will dine with us tonight," Lyra announced. Ethan straightened, wiping grime off his hands. "Dine? On what? This moon has nothing but rocks, and I'm not in the mood to crack my teeth on cosmic gravel." Vera laughed. "Our ship has food supplies, we will cook for you. Human mechanics deserve gratitude." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Define cook. Because if it's anything like that glowing green paste I saw oozing out of your pantry, I'm going to need a waiver signed in triplicate." The sisters ignored his sarcasm and herded him inside. The ship, though scarred on the outside, was elegant within, walls pulsing faint light, corridors whispering as though alive. The dining chamber unfolded from the floor itself, smooth panels reshaping into a table and curved seats. Ethan dropped into one warily. Vera set a plate in front of him. The food shimmered, small cubes of violet and turquoise, steaming with a scent halfway between cinnamon and engine coolant. "Try," she said, eyes bright with challenge. He picked up a utensil that resembled a trident designed for toddlers, speared a cube, and sniffed. "If this kills me, at least bury me somewhere that doesn't smell like burnt plasma." He popped it into his mouth. The flavor hit him like a punch of lightning and honey. He coughed, eyes watering. Okay, that's not bad, just aggressively enthusiastic about existing." The twins clapped their hands together, delighted. Lyra leaned close, ears twitching. "You like? It's edible," Ethan conceded, reaching for his flask of water. "Though next time, maybe warn me before I eat something that tastes like it's auditioning to be both dessert and rocket fuel." Dinner descended into chaos. The sisters produced dish after dish, some surprisingly pleasant, others designed by what he was sure were culinary war criminals. Ethan tried each one, making increasingly dramatic commentary. "This one tastes like regret. This one tastes like someone tried to cook sadness. This one tastes like my tongue is filing for divorce." The twins laughed so hard they nearly fell from their seats. Vera teased him for his weak human stomach while Lyra offered him a mysterious drink in a crystal vial. "What is it?" Ethan asked suspiciously. "A digestive aid," she said innocently. He sipped. His eyes widened. "This is alcohol." "Yes," she agreed, "digestive aid." By the time the meal ended, Ethan's stomach was in rebellion, but his laughter was genuine. He leaned back in his chair, watching the sisters tease each other, their mirrored movements oddly comforting. Then the ship jolted, lights dimmed, alarms whispered low tones, Ethan froze, instincts prickling. Lyra and Vera exchanged a glance that was too sharp, too knowing. "What was that?" Ethan asked. The sisters tapped their wrist devices, projecting a holomap into the air. Dots of crimson clustered nearby, moving in hunting patterns. "Syndicate patrols," Vera said. "Great," Ethan muttered. "And here I thought indigestion was the worst thing I'd face tonight." The sisters didn't laugh this time. Their silver eyes darkened, their long ears angled back. Lyra folded the map away, voice low. "They hunt us." Ethan blinked. "Why?" Vera leaned forward, lowering her tone as if the ship itself might be listening. "Because we carry something they want. Knowledge. A code that does not belong to them." Ethan rubbed his face. "Of course you do." Couldn't just be two harmless tourists with a broken ride, could you? No, I had to stumble into a galactic conspiracy. Despite his sarcasm, he stood, scanning the map again. The patrols were sweeping wide, but one was closing fast. All right, he said. Options, can your ship outrun them? Lyra shook her head. Not yet, systems unstable. Then it's up to me and my magic bag of spare parts. Ethan grabbed his tools, muttering, "This is how I die. Not in battle, not in glory, but duct-taping alien engines while half-drunk on their digestive aid." The sisters followed him to the engine chamber. He tore open panels, rerouting power, welding in defiance of reason. The ship shuddered, angry, but the reactor began to hum louder. Outside, scanners showed the patrol drawing near. Vera called out updates while Lyra held the tools he barked for. The ship groaned as Ethan forced systems beyond their design. "Come on, sweetheart," he whispered to the machine. "Don't embarrass me in front of the pretty aliens." The reactor flared, shields snapped awake, engines howled. "Go," Ethan shouted. Lyra slammed her hand on the controls. The ship lurched off the moon, streaking into black space. Patrol sensors lit up, chasing immediately. Ethan stumbled into the cockpit, strapping in beside them. Lasers flashed past the viewport. The sisters piloted with desperate precision, their movements fluid, mirrored. "Can we lose them?" Ethan asked. "No," Lyra answered. "Yes," Vera countered. They glared at each other, then burst into simultaneous laughter despite the danger. Ethan groaned. "Please pick one answer before we explode." The chase turned frantic. Ethan spotted a cloud of debris ahead, broken satellites and frozen junk orbiting a forgotten station. He grinned. "Head into that mess." Lyra arched a brow. "That is madness." "Exactly, they won't expect it." The ship dove into the debris field. Metal scraped against shields, alarms screamed, but the patrols hesitated. Ethan darted back to the engine chamber, yanking cables, and rerouted power to cloak emitters he'd barely managed to stabilize earlier. The ship flickered, then vanished into the junkyard shadows. Patrol ships swept past, confused, scattering in different directions. Silence fell. "You give away valuable parts," Lyra said. "Yeah, well, better than starving on fumes." He hesitated. "Besides, I've been carrying that coil around for months waiting for it to impress someone. Glad it finally worked." They laughed and Vera touched his arm briefly, a gesture that sent heat through him he tried to ignore. Later, as they floated through the void, the twins taught him their humor. They explained riddles that bent logic into spirals, jokes about stars misbehaving, laughter over the peculiarities of humans. Ethan tried to tell them Earth jokes in return, but translation didn't always work. "What do you call an alien with 3 eyes?" Ethan asked. The sisters tilted their heads. "What?" "An alien." Silence, then simultaneous groans. "That is not humor," Vera declared. "That is suffering," Lyra added. Ethan threw up his hands. Tough crowd. The banter eased the edges of danger, but danger was never far. At the next station they visited, a syndicate informant spotted them. Ethan noticed the shadow first, a pair of mercenaries following too closely as they browsed the bazaar. "Friends of yours?" he whispered. Lyra shook her head. "Not friends." They slipped into an alley, but the mercenaries cornered them. One raised a plasma rifle. Ethan stepped forward, hands up. "Listen," he said, voice steady. "You don't want to shoot. Plasma burns are terrible for property values." The mercenary blinked. "What?" Ethan swung his tool bag into the weapon, knocking it aside as the twins attacked with sudden grace. Vera kicked the second merc square in the chest. Lyra disarmed the first, and Ethan tried not to look too shocked at their speed. They fled back to the ship, alarms howling across the station. Ethan dove into the cockpit, heart racing, while the sisters plotted another impossible escape. "You two are going to get me killed," he gasped. "Probably," Lyra admitted cheerfully. "But you laugh while we do it," Vera added. He couldn't argue with that. As the ship leapt into faster-than-light folds, Ethan found himself laughing too, though it came out half hysterical. The danger was relentless, but the humor threaded through it like oxygen. In the quiet after the jump, the twins leaned close, their mirrored gazes resting on him. Lyra's ears tilted forward, catching every shaky breath he exhaled. "You stay with us," Vera said softly. Ethan blinked, caught off guard. "I didn't realize I had a choice." "You always have a choice," Lyra said, "but we hope you choose us." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned back, staring at the endless stars. For the first time in years, wandering didn't feel so aimless. Ethan discovered very quickly that running with Lyra and Vera was not so much a matter of survival as it was a crash course in improvisation, panic, and bad jokes delivered at light speed. Their ship slipped through fold space like a fish darting through currents, but the Syndicate was relentless, sending mercenary vessels that snapped at their heels no matter how far they leapt. "Do they ever get bored?" Ethan muttered, hunched over a console he was trying to rewire with a coil of cable and something that looked suspiciously like alien chewing gum. "Boredom is a human luxury," Lyra replied, steady hands on the controls. "They only know greed." "Figures," Ethan said. "Greed's universal, like taxes or headaches." Vera glanced over, silver eyes flickering with amusement. "And your head aches often, human." "Only every time I have to save your engines from spontaneous combustion," Ethan shot back. The ship shook violently as a blast from behind clipped their shields. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Ethan yelped, clutching the cable tighter. "See. Exhibit A." Instead of fear, the twins laughed. Their long ears twitched in unison, catching the hum of the ship as if tuning themselves to it. Lyra jerked the controls, sending them into a dive that Ethan was fairly sure violated every law of physics. "Do that again and I'm installing seatbelts with actual locks," he grumbled. Vera smirked. "We do not need locks, we have balance." "I do. My balance is somewhere back there with the pieces of our shield." The mercenaries pressed closer. Ethan scrambled into the engine bay, sweat prickling as he tried to coax the cloak emitters into life again. The circuits hummed under his hands, unstable, threatening to blow. He whispered encouragement like a prayer. "Come on, sweetheart. I know you're tired. Just one more miracle. I'll even buy you flowers after this." The system flickered alive, wrapping the ship in distorted light. The mercenaries overshot, confused, scattering like angry hornets. Lyra wasted no time weaving the vessel into a nearby asteroid field. Inside the cockpit, alarms screamed. Outside, chunks of rock spun in every direction, colliding in slow but inevitable violence. Ethan stumbled back, grabbing onto the wall. "Asteroids? Really? You had a whole galaxy to hide in and you picked flying death pebbles." "Death pebbles do not scan for us," Lyra said calmly, guiding them between jagged stone. Vera added with a grin, "Besides, it is fun." Ethan buried his face in his hands. "I'm traveling with lunatics. Beautiful lunatics, but lunatics all the same." The chase through the asteroid field was a blur of near misses, and Ethan's increasingly desperate commentary. At one point, a boulder the size of a city block drifted inches from their hull. Ethan swore loudly enough to startle the ship's interface into asking if he required medical assistance. "Medical? No. A strong drink. Yes." Lyra tilted her head, ears flicking. "Digestive aid." "Not that stuff again." When the Syndicate ships finally gave up the pursuit, peeling away from the asteroid field, silence fell. The three of them sat there in the cockpit, breathing hard. Then slowly laughter bubbled up, absurd and unstoppable. "We lived," Ethan gasped. "Somehow, against every reasonable prediction. I hope you two appreciate that I've officially run out of new swear words." Vera leaned against his shoulder, still laughing. "We will invent new ones together." Later, after the danger had ebbed, Ethan found himself sitting with them in the lounge, where the ship projected soft light like starlight caught in glass. The twins told stories of the data they'd stolen, of the Syndicate's cruelty, of their endless flight across systems. Their voices shifted between humor and sorrow, and Ethan found himself listening more closely than he intended. "You ever think about stopping?" he asked quietly. Lyra's silver eyes flicked to his. Stopping means capture. Capture means silence forever. Besides, Vera added with a mischievous smile, we have you now. You are too noisy to let silence win. Ethan snorted. That's the nicest way anyone's ever called me annoying. They all laughed again, but beneath the humor, he felt the weight of what they were saying. He saw how Twinship had bound them tightly, yet how that bond also walled them off from everyone else. Now they looked at him as if he was some unexpected missing piece. He tried to deflect with more jokes, because that was easier. Just to be clear, I'm not applying for permanent residency on this flying death trap. I'm just the mechanic, remember. Lyra leaned closer, her long ears twitching toward him, almost brushing his cheek. Mechanics are the ones who keep hearts beating. Do not pretend you are not part of this ship already. The words stuck with him long after the laughter faded, echoing as they drifted through the silent corridors of space. For the first time in years, Ethan found himself imagining a future not built on wandering, but on belonging. Of course, the Syndicate wasn't done with them. None of them believed the reprieve would last. But in that moment, wrapped in the strange warmth of the twins' laughter, Ethan almost believed they could outrun anything. The Syndicate flagship loomed like a shadow stretched across half the stars. Ethan stared at it from the viewport, his stomach folding in on itself. Dozens of guns, layers of armor, an entire fleet in one monstrous vessel. He had fixed coffee machines bigger than himself, not fought galactic tyrants. This is insane, he said flatly. Completely, irreversibly insane. Lyra's hands rested calmly on the controls. You say that every time. Because you keep doing insane things, Ethan snapped. Flying into asteroid fields, stealing cosmic maps, eating food that tastes like motor oil. It all adds up. Vera leaned back smirking, and yet you are still here. He glared at her, but the truth stung. He was still there, still running beside them, still fixing what broke. Somewhere along the way, temporary mechanic had turned into something else. The plan, if it could be called that, was absurd. Sneak aboard the flagship, sabotage the core, and escape before the Syndicate could react. Ethan muttered about probability the whole time, but when it came time to crawl through vents with tools strapped to his belt, he didn't hesitate. Inside the flagship, everything gleamed with sterile precision. Patrols marched, drones buzzed, alarms whispered. Ethan clung to shadows behind the twins, who moved with impossible grace. At one point, a guard nearly spotted them. Ethan panicked, grabbed the nearest object, some alien